First, I'd like to thank Mom for putting this all together for me. But unfortunately, he can't make it due to a health issue, so he passed it on to me. And I'm the first nephew of Sheppard Lord.
Mike.
Is the mic on? Yeah, there it is. Sheppard Lewis Lohr, World War II combat veteran, a man of the greatest generation. Sheppard Lewis Lohr was born in Port Norris, September 10th, 1924. He was the second son of J. Marshall Lohr, Bud Lohr Sr., and Elizabeth Lizzie Lohr Hoffman. Sheppard was named after our great-grandfathers, Sheppard, Robbins, and Lewis Lohr. He got his formal education at Port Norris. He was a graduate of the Port Norris High School in class of 1943. Shep was quite the talented entertainer. He played the piano, electric organ, accordion, harmonica, all by ear. He also did some tap dancing. He entered the Knights of Pythias, Cape B Hall, Salem Theater, Cape May Convention Center, and several other venues in southern New Jersey with her sisters, Betty, Jean, and Nancy, to accommodate him. In 1930, Shep and Hammond Ferguson, our first cousin, had a regular Saturday morning show on WSNJ in New Jersey, Bridgeton, New Jersey. They had a large attending audience for that time. He was also quite mischievous as a youngster. Our mother and father, my grandparents, had a problem at times finding a sitter for the family children. Shep was an actor, a prankster, and he liked to pull many shenanigans. Shep was also a fast runner. One day he was aggravating our father, my grandfather. Dad went after him, and he ran back Lohr's lane. And he kept hollering at his dad, "You can't catch me, you can't catch me." But he forgot he had to come home at dark time. Shep and Bud Jr. drove cars at a very young age, around 9 and 10 years old. Dad told them he had a service station not to run the cars under the canopy because he just set out a new set of heaters for the winter. The automobiles. Shep come around the corner with the car, run into the heaters, and destroyed them all. Couldn't run fast enough that day. At 18, Shep registered for the mandatory draft. World War II was at its peak. Shep was a senior at Port Norris High School when he was drafted in the U.S. Army. He was given 2 months deferment so he could finish high school and graduate. He entered the U.S. Army on July 30th, 1943 at Fort Dix, New Jersey. He completed his basic training at Fort Dix in September 1943. After a short leave home, he boarded a train in Millville bound for Texas. Shep reported to Camp Finland near Tyler, Texas. He completed his combat infantry training at Camp Finland. He was at that location until January 1944. Camp Finland was also a POW camp for German soldiers. On January 10, 1944, he shipped out to the Western Pacific Theater of Operation, Asiatic Campaign. His military occupation, specialty MOS, and number was Automative Rifleman, a 746. His weapon was a Brownie automatic rifle, BAR. He qualified with several weapons, but ended up with the BAR, a large weapon for his stature. His MOS and weapon put him on point man for his squad. Point man, Shep assumed the first and most exposed position in the combat military information. Shep first entered World War II in New Guinea. His unit was charged with fleshing out enemy out of the jungle and out of caves. He went on for several months and enormous amount of casualties. In 1944, he was shipped to New Zealand for 2 weeks R&R, which was very welcome. In 1944, Sheppard's division combined with the 6th Army went ashore at White Beach and Ladle Beach in the Philippines, a heavily fortified area by the Japanese. General MacArthur designated it a day, Victory over Asian Day, the most decisive battle of the Asiatic campaign. The Japanese forces were devastated by U.S. troops. Sheppard, along with his unit, witnessed General MacArthur walking off an amphibious assault craft through the water on Lady Beach. The famous sight at the time. Rumor had it that the amphibious operator was court-martialed for not pulling the craft up so MacArthur wouldn't get his feet wet. Sheppard and his division moved through the Philippines on Luzon to the aid of liberation of that area. Heavy jungle and cave fighting all the way. He and his ammunition man were in a foxhole under heavy artillery, and a grenade was thrown into the foxhole. Ammunition man was mortally wounded, and Sheppard was wounded in 3 places with shrapnel. He was hospitalized in Luzon, May 10, 1945. When Luzon was secure, Sheppard was awarded 2 Purple Hearts for wounds they had received. The Japanese surrendered September 2nd, 1945. Sheppard's division moved into Japan shortly thereafter. His division was scheduled to go home to USA. However, Sheppard didn't go because he come down with pneumonia and was hospitalized in Yokohama, Japan. Just a few beds away from Sheppard was Hideki Tojo, a former Japanese emperor, recovering from a botched suicide attempt. The attempt took place minutes prior to his arrest on September 11, 1945, a day after Sheppard's 21st birthday. U.S. medics saved Tojo's life in order to keep his appointment with the hangman, so he was found guilty of war crimes. Sheppard was also good at sketching art. He did a sketch of Tojo and sent it home to her mother. He returned to the USA in October 1945. However, he beat the sketch home because it was heavily censored. Sheppard served 2 years, 4 months, 2 days active duty in the U.S. Army, according to the military records. Most of that time was in combat. He was honorably discharged November 10, 1945. He returned to civilian life with a malaria, shell shock, and PTSD today. He suffered for several decades with malaria and pushed through the shell shock episodes. Like the rest of the men of the greatest generation, Sheppard never complained. Sheppard studied at vocational school and became an interior decorator. He worked as an interior decorator in New York, Amsterdam for a few years. He returned home to our father's business was garage where he worked for several years. Sheppard took care of the front end of the business, ordering supplies, automotive parts for the garage. He made repairs, serviced cars, and was a store manager and salesman. In 1958, he moved to Pompano Beach, Florida. For 33 years, he married a girl named Mary Ann, a lovely lady. He worked at retail stores, played his music at several different nightclubs, malls in Broward County, Florida. He and Mary enjoyed their life together. Unfortunately, she passed away in March 1980. After Mary passed away, Sheppard would come spend time with us, Uncle Herb, in Stuart, Florida. His favorite saying was at dinner time was, "If you snooze, you lose." Uncle Herb's boys still say that today. After a few years by himself, he married another lady friend in Millville, a widow Lois. He had dated her briefly after he was discharged from the Army. He moved to New Jersey and lived in Millville. He and Lois loved Cape May and spent much time in Cape May as they could in Cape May. They traveled to Italy and toured the country. on their trip to, on their return trip home from Italy, the situation arose. The pilot announced they had an emergency. They were over the English Channel when announced it was made. The pilot made a quick right and headed back to Charles de Gaulle Airport in France. As he feared he would have to ditch the plane. He was over the English Channel. The plane made it safe but rough landing at Charles de Gaulle. Emergency chute were deployed and all the passengers were directed to leave everything behind and jump out of the chute up fast. All the passengers, including Sheppard and Lois, were eventually told the details. A hijacker had allegedly underway a hijack with a bomb. They were never told whether that story was a hoax or true. The flight resumed to the States the next day. They were their one and only European trip. Sheppard was the owner of a Texas oil well in the 1980s. Plus, on it was on an 80-acre plus lot of land. The oil well was capped for several years, and in the late 80s, it reopened. He welcomed the royalties. Shep spent the rest of his years in Millville with Lois until he passed away of cancer, Mother's Day, May 12, 1991. He was 66 years of age. Sheppard and Lewis stores medals, campaign ribbons, and souvenirs will be displayed in the shadow box at the Port Norris Historical Society. That's still in the works. I'm working on that myself. I wish to thank all the contributors to this presentation, with special thanks to Betty Dash, Nancy Walsh, Alvin Lohr, and Patricia Bernstein. I also want to thank the Port Norris Historical Society for the many hours of work necessary to make this possible and memorable for years. Always remember the greatest generation. They made it possible for us to be here today. And I thank you for that.
You're welcome.